Hello, our viewers. Welcome to our next episode. We want to thank you for keeping on the show, and want to appreciate our colleagues from Humanist TV Africa for always streaming live our shows and ensuring that we are able to reach out there with information, with awareness creation, and sensitizing the masses, but also presenting to us a number of issues that are coming out from the consumers across Africa, and specifically giving a case for Uganda. Welcome again to this new week and the episode that ends our week. My name is Bernard Wambale. I am the head of programs at the Global Consumer Center. And Mr. Chimera Henry will not be with us today. He's attending to other competing priorities outside in Mbale, trying to make sure that he sensitizes the consumers on what next around food safety in the market areas. So I'm honored to host you, and we shall be privileged to share a lot of ideas today. And today our show is really looking at the nexus of customer care and business growth and development. Basically trying to understand what is the relationship between customer care and the business growth and development. But of course, we shall have the show will be split into two sessions. The first session, we're going to talk about what are the consumer issues in business, the consumer issues in business, in marketplace, or around trade. And then the second section will be looking at what are the customer care principles that we need to take into consideration to make sure that we are able to deliver the fair trade and able to support consumers to get what they need from the marketplaces. So welcome again to this show. I will be taking you through during the course of this 1 hour as we share. Dennis Bongole will be in the studio, taking charge of the recordings and also taking charge of the coverage. Thank you so much, Bongole, for being around. All right, so let us dive into the consumer issues last year, 2024, as we have been reporting to you. Okay, sorry, somehow the network disappeared. Well, so so last year we collected again complaints, as we have always said, the consumer complaints from our consumers, and quite substantially this time there were insights about trade and market, the market sector, the trade. What are the traders doing out there that the consumers are really not in love with? And one of them actually that was mostly complained about was the issue of fluctuation of prices. You know, every time you go to the market to buy tomatoes, you find that the price of yesterday is not the price of today. You go back tomorrow and the price has changed. So meaning that every other week, the cost of items keep changing. And so the market issue, the market fluctuation makes people lose trust in the business persons. For instance, if someone bought, let us say, a kilogram of rice yesterday at 3,000 Ugandan shillings, and then shortly after a week, or maybe shortly after 2 days, they go to the neighboring shop, and the price of rice has changed. So yesterday they were buying rice at 3,000, and now the price is at maybe 3,500. So you find that now consumers are really not comfortable with the nature in which prices keep fluctuating every now and then. And actually, consumers were indicating that such a thing could limit the trust that people have in business entities. Because also sometimes it's not really about the market fluctuation in terms of cost, but it's also about, different shops selling the same item at a different cost. So you find that you have 4 shops in the same area, in the same location, selling the same product, say rice or bread. And one of them is selling bread at 2,000, rather 4,500, and another one is selling it the same quantity of bread at 5,000. So when you look at the brand, it is the same brand. I mean, someone is selling the same brand, but these two guys are selling the same brand at a different cost, at different costs. And yet they're in the same location, they have same brands, everything is the same, but the cost is different. Also, when you look at the nature of the shop where you're buying from, it's really not any different. That maybe someone is paying higher rent than the other. All of you are on the same street, same house, but different shops. One is selling 5,000, the other one is selling for 5, the other one is selling. So this issue of prices, it was a little bit an issue that almost we are talking about 82% of the consumers complained about it. And by the way, we are talking about 2,000 people, 2,284 people who really submitted these complaints, 2,284. But you can imagine 80% of those, 82% of those talking about the fluctuation of markets. Rather now, if you look at the farmers who are also selling this, they really prepare their food items and they want to trade the food. Now, at the time of selling, let us say someone wants to sell coffee, and then you wake up in the morning, a kilogram of coffee maybe 2 days ago was at 7,000. You wake up in the morning, it has dropped to 5,000. And then in the middle there, it rises again to 10,000. So you realize that the fluctuation of issues tend to put our people a little bit stuck. It is the same to the maize people who are producing maize. They wake up in the morning, a kilogram of maize is at 2,000, and then they assume that maybe the cost is increasing, and so they keep the maize, bulky maize in their stores, only to realize a week later, the maize drops to 700 shillings, from 2,000 to 700. It has also happened to people who are planting cotton. It is the same. So you see that there is a lot of unregulated costing. Who is determining the cost of food products, of products on the market? Who is actually determining the costing is an issue. So you find that in our country, we don't have, for instance, the regulation of price. So you find that everybody can sell anything depending on circumstance, depending on what they have at hand, depending on what they think. And then you see a consumer suffering in there because they don't have alternatives. They don't have where to buy. They don't have a scale that, this is it. We can buy this at this much. So an issue of fluctuation of cost, it is something that governments are supposed to look at genuinely and try to see how best prices can be regulated. We have seen issues to do with fuel. Fuel keeps on fluctuating. You wake up, one station is at 5,000 a liter, another one is at 4.5, another one is at 6. So you really don't know. And all of you are buying petrol, you're buying diesel, but the diesel or petrol are costing different prices at different stations. So all of these things came up during the course of collecting the complaints. The other aspect that came out clearly was the issue of expired products. Like currently you go and buy products and then you find them expired. We're talking about 64% of the people who complained about trade. They are talking about expiry of products. And one of the cases was that most of the supermarkets, most of them will sell you a product because they well package them, but you reach home, the product is actually expired. Now, the challenge is twofold. One, it could be the consumer because you should have read the expiry date and understood that the product is actually not expired. Unfortunately, most of the consumers do not pay attention to reading the expiry dates. Now, on the other hand, it's an issue of the supermarket or the shop. Why should you sell expired food products in your shop? Because by standards, you are supposed to be cross-checking every day the expiry of the products. If it were possible, each and every service provider or each and every provider of these goods is supposed to be having a system that tells you, hey, we have bought water on January 24th, and its expiry date is maybe February. So all those products which are expiring in a month or 2 or 3 months, they should be put in front of the shelves so that people can see them and then they can buy them before they can buy those whose expiry dates are far. So for instance, if you have a product that is expiring in March, and then you have another product that is expiring in October, you cannot have a product expiring in March put behind those expiring in October. And that is now the problem that we face with most of our people in the market. They just arrange anything the way they want. First of all, because they did not also check the expiry date when they were buying those products. That is very unfortunate. That someone is running a supermarket, someone is running a shop, and they have not done an assessment of the products that they are purchasing to come and sell to other people. So they end up bringing things that are expiring in a week or two, and yet people cannot buy them as quickly as that until they end up expiring. And then sometimes we see people repackaging expired products, which is illegal. This is food fraud, especially if you repackaged a food product that has expired. Actually, that is part of food fraud, and you're supposed to be arrested immediately if you are actually identified. That is a case against safety of the consumers. So we've seen all these things happen, and also we have also a little bit noted that there are some people who realize that the expiry is coming in the next 2 days, and then they start making the other logos of the expiry date being extended. The product is on the market, the product is in the supermarket, and then the supermarket attendant starts changing the expiry dates. Now, that is another suicide that we are causing to society. That is killing of the society. So when consumers were complaining about expiry products, those are some of the issues that we're highlighting. One, people repackage expired products. And so they look like they are newly repackaged, but actually when they expired, they reach home, open it, the whole thing is still very expired. We have also seen others who reported, of course, that people change dates, and then we have a mess. People buy products believing in this, and then they end up reaching home and the products expired like a month or so ago. But also we have noted that most of these guys who are dealing with food seem not to understand the dynamics around expiry date, best before date, all those details. It seems that people are not reading them carefully to understand that I'm not supposed to put this in my shop, or I shouldn't take it to my home. So it is a two-way. The supermarkets and the people handling food, we must make sure that we save our consumers, our customers, but also we need to work very hard to ensure that the products we are giving to the consumers are really worth it. Of course, not forgetting that each one of us is a consumer. So even if you give these food products to other people, you have a challenge, you have a risk of also consuming it unknowingly in one way or the other. Just imagine if you, for people who stay in Kampala, we have known that recently there was an incident where we had an eruption of garbage which killed people. Around about 30 or so people died because of garbage in Chitezi. But we know that in Chitezi there were people who were actually sorting eggs, stale eggs. So for instance, a company has gone to throw stale eggs, and then there is this group of people who are collecting those eggs, bring them back to the market, or they supply them to food industry that are making bread or whatever, and then they remix it. They remix those eggs in people's bread, in cakes, in whatever. I mean, this is not a hearsay because we've seen them come out when the Chitezi collapsed. People are saying, no, I was dealing in eggs from Kitezi, and you wonder why such individuals are not even in prison. They're supposed to be in cells, but you see, they are just languishing everywhere. The eggs were stale. Someone picks them from garbage, takes them back to a company or whatever, and they start making food products, bread, eggs, chapati, or whatever, and then they prepare meals. Which kind of humanity is this? So there's a lot of mess that happens, but I think with consumer awareness, with consumer empowerment, with people knowing these things, we believe that people can actually improve. So that is something to do with expired products, which is about 64% of the consumers who raised concerns around that. Now, we also had another 59% of the people. Now, for them, they're not talking about expiry products. They were talking about poor quality of produce or products. People go and make real poor quality stuff. So for instance, you want to copy what the other person did, and then you want to do it, but you want to compromise on the profits, rather you want to compromise on whatever they are using, the ingredients, to make more profit. And at the end of the day, you bring poor quality, substandard products on the market. For instance, someone buys a shoe, wears it for 3 days or 1 week, and the shoe is already torn. Who does that? It means that the quality of the shoe was very bad, irrespective of the fact that someone might have bought it expensively. But also sometimes they make sure that these products are also cheap, very cheap, and you start doubting what is happening. There's a time one person was jazzing with us and said they bought gum boots. So when they bought gum boots, the guy put on the gum boot and then went to the farm. Surprisingly, while he was on the farm, he stepped on a thorn, and the thorn was able to enter through the the boots. So you would wonder, you'd feel like, okay, so when did the boots start allowing such small thorns also to penetrate through? So the quality of the products on the market it has been compromised. If you look at now the food products, it's even worse. Someone gives you a cup of milk, but that cup is almost 3/4 of water and then maybe a quarter of milk. Someone gives you a cloth. When you look at the cloth, it's really of no quality at all. Now, the consumers, we need to be careful. How do you purchase things? How do you determine which product you need to take home? How do you determine which product you want to buy at the amount of money that you want to pay? Are you responsible for your money? Are you interested that you're actually losing money every time you're buying, by the way, a substandard good or a counterfeit or whatever? What you're literally doing is that you want to waste the money you have now so that you buy another, because after 3 days now you want another shoe. So you keep on buying shoes 1 day, 2 days, and then in a year you've bought 10 shoes, which is a waste of resources. And mind you, if you're buying and you're keeping them and you're using them, it would be nice. But now you buy them, you use them for 3 days, throw them away because they're already torn. So the issue of standards, the aspect of the quality of products is something that UNBS has to look into. How are the standards that are used to make these goods and products and put them on the market? Sometimes you go and buy a bulb. You just want to put up a bulb in your house so that you can have lighting. But you reach home and the bulb can only work for just 20 minutes and it has blown. So you wonder what is not happening. So there's a lot of substandard products on the market. When you come to agro inputs, it's even terrible. What makes it terrible is that someone has been hit, his garden or her garden has been hit by pests and maybe diseases. And of course, they run to the agro shop to be able to purchase the agro inputs, for instance, the pesticides. Now, when they reach home and they spray, actually, one of the farmers told us that instead of the pests decreasing on the farm, instead now they see an increase. Sometimes you use a chemical and instead of killing the pests, it actually attracts the pests just because of the counterfeit and substandard chemicals that people are using. So you're spraying it on something, but literally there is no result that you're getting just because someone sold you a fake product or a substandard product. We've also seen the same acaricides in animals. Someone buys acaricides and then they come to wherever they're buying them and say, okay, give me 20 mils. They give you 20 mils of acaricides. You go and apply them and nothing happens to the cow. And so because of this kind of substandard, fake, counterfeit products, you find that most of the farmers are spending a lot of money to produce. And when they spend a lot of money to produce, it means that the cost of buying food will be higher on the consumer side because the cost of production was higher. It leads to an increase in the cost of sales. So the consumers now become the victims because the cost has gone so high because the farmer is calculating their input. And I mean, so at the end of the day, you have a challenge such as that. So that is a little bit of how we could give you some bit of highlights on what was reported on substandard and expired products. Of course, on poor quality rather of goods and services. Now, of course, we had other concerns that we're talking about, counterfeits, just like I've mentioned. Something is really not exactly what it was supposed to be. We have seen all this in phones, in water, even water. You can imagine that people go and repackage water and put it in any bottles they want, and then you start seeing factory errors when the water is already on the market and people are already drinking. But then at the end of the day, people start getting diarrheas and etc., and people are admitted, etc. So a lot of counterfeit food products, a lot of counterfeit gadgets, phones, computers, technological devices, among others. So there's a need for the counterfeit teams. We have a counterfeit network to deal with issues of counterfeit products on the market, because one, they compromise the quality of goods and produce that we take into the export market, and so they make us actually non-competitive in trade, and we may end up having a challenge when it comes to competitiveness with other countries that actually do not require any counterfeits. So those are some of the concerns that came up through there. But also we had other concerns relating to misleading adverts. Now, when you look at the misleading adverts, this is very common on our televisions, on our radios. You really see people fronting an advert, and when you look at the message in the advert, or when you just look at how the advert is running, you sympathize with consumers who don't seem to understand the things. For instance, if someone gave you a particular oil or a particular spread on your bread and then tells you when you spread it on the bread of a baby, the baby will grow in 2 days. And so they tell you in 1 week the guy will have put on height. And that is a television advert. Now, when these children start seeing such adverts that, hey, okay, I should spread my bread with these spreads and whatever, then I will be tall. And then people start eating a lot of unhealthy food in the name of wanting to actually get to what the advert is suggesting. If they are short and they want to be tall, they will eat a lot of that food to make sure that they are tall. But you see where the problem is coming from? The misleading advert. What about these guys? I've seen a lot of energy drinks, and then they're on TV running, and they tell you, oh, you just sip, and then when you sip, you are energized and you can fly. And then you see in an advert someone is flying really. So what is happening to these children? The children now start learning that, oh, okay, I have to drink this particular soft drink so that I start flying in air. Or sometimes the adverts have been made in such a way that when the person takes in an energy drink, and then they get a lot of energy and they start fighting. You've seen those kind of adverts. Now, children believe that, oh, when I take this, then I'll have energy, I can beat my colleague, and then you find children fighting each other, even to an extent of killing each other, by the way, during the course of those unnecessary fights that come because of learning from the adverts. So there's a lot to do with advertisement. And I think this is the role of UCC, the Uganda Communications Commission, has to regulate the content that goes on TVs in terms of adverts, or also in terms of what are we sending out there as content. They have a whole department, by the way, that deals with content regulation, but also they have a whole department that talks about consumer affairs. So these entities must actually make sure that the content, the ideas, the aspects that goes to TV or social media or wherever, they must be thoroughly regulated. If we don't do that, we are doomed, because it will mean that the next generation will be capturing wrong things in their minds. Now, just imagine a baby of maybe 6 years or 7 years, and is on television seeing that when you take a particular soft drink, you're going to fly in air, you're going to fight people, you're going to beat everybody. Now, what are we sending to the minds of these children? So there's quite a lot that comes up with issues to do with misleading adverts. Of course, also we had another challenge on fraud, both in, of course, physical and online market spaces. We see a lot of fraud happening. And what is this fraud looking like? I think it is very important to reflect on what this fraud looks like. Let me just give you some bit of instances that we interacted with in the field. You find that someone is going to buy maybe let's say food items from a supermarket or from a shop, and then this person asks the shop attendant, well, do you have Momo Pay so that I can pay you online? And the person says, no, we don't have Momo Pay, but you can use our mobile money. Yeah. And then, of course, the person buying asks for the number, and they say, okay, here is the number, please drop the money there. So the guy does the transaction, the money goes to the shopkeeper's phone, and the shopkeeper sees the money. But after 1 minute, as the guy leaves the shop heading to his vehicle, he reverses the money, he reverses the transaction, because MTN and Airtel have allowed people to be able to reverse the money on their phone if at all they had sent it to a wrong person. Now that still happens, that someone is purchasing items, let's say of 500,000, and then they have paid via mobile money. And then after paying via mobile money, they even notify the shopkeeper that, hey, you see the money? Yes, I've seen it. Okay. So the guy leaves the shop. The shopkeeper is content if the money has come. And as soon as the guy enters his vehicle, he reverses the transaction before the other guy withdraws it. All that is part of fraud, really. It's part of fraud that is happening within our society that we need to think about. we have reached out to the telecoms to see how best we handle that kind of situation, because there's now an issue that consumers are also reporting, because those guys who are selling us products are also consumers of our services as consumers. So they're also reporting that kind of stuff. But also the other fraud is around adulterations. You have food, milk, and then you're putting water. I shared with you last time that there's a gentleman who was fetching, rather, who was selling milk. And so when his boss gave him a 20-liter jerry can of milk and they put it in a can, and I saw the guy was moving downstream to go and sell the milk in one of the cities in Uganda. The guy bypassed the water stream, this flowing water, and then he got his around about 4 or 5 liters and added them to that. But when you look at where he was fetching it, it was a swamp, and the guy was fetching this water from a swamp and adding it to the milk that he was going to sell, so that at the end of the sale he gives his boss the money is for the 20 liters, and then he has already an additional 5 liters, which was water that he actually picked from the swamp. And people have already eaten, people have already, and that alone is just too much of the fraud. If that such a person is gotten, they're supposed to be arrested, but that is adulteration of food. We have also seen that there's a lot of fraud when it comes to the way people in restaurants, for instance, the way they handle food. You find that I told you still of the girl who, I think she was annoyed with the customer and decided to put her saliva in the juice of a customer. A lot of mess that happens. All this is part of food fraud, trying to make sure that you make food what it is not supposed to be. A lot of fraud happens when it comes to issues of trade. We have also seen fraud when it comes to people go to buy or make procurements or purchases, and then also the thugs are moving around to downsize them. So all of those fraud issues were also coming up boldly during the course of this, but also they were coming around online payments. People are being scammed. People are being conned and cheated on phone, on emails, on everything. Everything. Every day now you see someone has been conned. The link is being shared on groups and whatever. That is one of the issues that we actually have as a country, that consumers are not contented with, and I think we need to have a lot of work to be done around how do we manage fraud. And now there is also something to do with delays in deliveries. So, for instance, if people are doing online purchases, so someone sends a requisition and then even pays the money, but receiving the product has become a challenge in some of the areas. And what is happening is that as they delay, you need to know where they're delaying. Could it be on the road? Could it be the source, or etc. So there are quite a lot of delays when people send for food. For instance, there are companies now that actually deliver your food at the doorstep. There are people who deliver, okay, those who are driving cars, those who are running safe border, those who are running, these online apps for transport. Somehow there are delays in the product deliveries, or even sometimes people lose shipment. Someone has put merchandise on the ship and gets lost. Yeah, so all those were challenges that were reported by the consumers. There is an issue of inaccuracies in product weighing. Now, every year, it is mandatory that every particular period of time, anyone who has a business and they are using a weighing scale, it is supposed to be standardized and calibrated by the UNBS, preferably every 6 months or every 1 year, so that they give you new weights, because the other ones have lost it, have lost the weight. Now they want to give you new weights that are balancing with your scale. But many of the traders do not want to listen to that. They do not want to work around the clock to have accurate weights. And so most times you go and buy sugar 1 kilo, but when you reach home, in actual sense, you bought 3 quarters. The quarter is not there. Well, there are acceptable ranges if they're in grams, maybe 10 grams or yeah. But then here you find that someone gives you a product, and then honestly, there is no, the weighing is very inaccurate. At Consent, we try to do a lot of work on comparative testing, what we call comparative testing, where we get bread, we get sugar, we get everything, and we go to the communities and teach people how you can determine that actually products are underweight. And we've done that over and over again, and we shall keep doing it to make sure that people are very conscious whenever they buy. Just imagine if you went to buy a kilogram and then you found maybe 4.9 or 4.5. So you've lost money for the other bit that is not there. Now, also the other problem is that we have seen most of the consumers get this food food products, and they're selling them maybe on the roadside. And what is happening is that you get someone puts sand at the bottom of the container where they have put Irish, and then if it is Irish potatoes, someone puts sand or stones in between there so that the weight is higher, and then when you put on the weighing scale, it balances off. But when someone reaches home and pour off, you realize that actually almost half of the beans or half of the maize or half of whatever product someone was carrying was actually occupied by stones or maybe sand or maybe something of the sort. So all that is part and parcel of inaccuracies in product weighing. So we need to do quite a lot of work when it comes to sensitizing people on these weighing scales, ensuring that UNBS has their branches closer to the people so that people are able to actually people are able to calibrate their weighing scales. UNBS should even make sure that they do inspection of these areas so that they understand that actually the weighing scales are not meeting the standard. So we have a standard for weighing scales, and so it must be met. So the responsible persons or the responsible entities must then work around the clock to improve that. And then as we come to the end of the issues, one of them was also poor food handling practices still remains a challenge. Of course, when you look at the roads where we are selling food, when you look at the circumstances under which food is being sold, it's a little bit tricky. So it's very paramount then that we need as much as possible to make sure that our consumers receive the best they can by providing them really quality and standard products. So basically, this is what we were able to gather from the consumers when it comes to the business entities on how best you guys are handling business. Let it be a hospital, let it be transport, let it be merchandise, anything. These apply to all of us. So with that, why not look at why then would you, or what do you need then to advance trade and market? The only thing that we need to do quickly as entities of dealing with business, we need to think about the customer care, because all these other things I've just talked about, counterfeit, the substandard goods, the fraud, all that compromise the ability of customer care. So at the end of the day, people lose that trust in businesses, people lose confidence in businesses, and so businesses start collapsing just because you are defrauding them, just because you're giving them expired products, just because you have substandard products, just because you have counterfeits, just because you're not respecting their rights and responsibility. It becomes a challenge altogether. Or maybe because you are doing wrong adverts, at the end of the day, when you are revealed to people that actually been doing a wrong advertisement, now that is when the businesses start collapsing and closing, and you fail miserably. So let us a little bit shift to understand the dynamics around consumer customer care. So once we have that as well, we shall be able to call it a day, because I know that now we shall have probably understood a little bit of the subject matter. And now what I'm just going to share with you around customer care is, what does good customer care actually look like in the eyes or in the face of the consumers? As the consumers, we want to tell you what we call customer care, how this customer care we feel it should look like, whether you're in the market, whether you're in the hospital, whether you're in schools, whether everywhere you are, these would apply. Especially, this is what makes us, the consumers, feel that, yeah, I think this entity is doing very well. First and foremost, it is the issue of empathetic communication. Communicate, and communicate well and empathetically with your customers. customers. So make sure that your emotions during the speech do not make the customer run away, because if they do, then you lose the business. Because someone who comes with $100,000 and to buy your thing and he reaches there and then you are not empathetic enough, you are likely actually to lose such a business. So for us, the consumers, one of the principal things that we need is the issue of communication. And this communication, it is all about the empathetic communication. But also we have issues of accountability. We say that every business entity must be accountable for us as the consumers of your product. You must be accountable for us. And if you're not accountable for us, then we cannot support you. We shall look for those who can be of help and those who can actually implement what we want to implement. So you remember that the consumer is the biggest entity we have, because they are the ones determining projects, they are the ones determining business, they are the ones determining everything, even economy, by the way. So when you're not accountable to them as a service provider, that hey, look here, I'm providing these goods and services, but they are placed safely, they're on the safe material, I've not used any unsafe product, then you're just trying to be accountable to people that hey, this is where we want to provide you the best service. So taking really responsibility to sustain or maintain trust and reliability is also very key. Ensuring that you are reliable in your business, but also making sure that you are responsible for whatever happens to your consumers. Let me give you an example. This morning I was reading news and I found the story of one of the doctors who stays in one of the regions of the country. And while he traveled to his home area a few days ago on the 15th of January, he was seated in a particular bus, of course, which I can't mention for security reasons. And then reaching home, he actually woke up 3 days later while he was in the hospital. Now he kept on asking what happened. They said, oh, they brought you here when you're unconscious 3 days ago. So what had happened was that he claims, according to that article, he claims that they must have been poisoned in the bus. He also says that they moved from all the way from Kampala to wherever they are going without meals. So they did not have meals on the road. But people got people got sick and they were taken to the hospital. So he alleges that perhaps there could be people, wrong characters, who had come in the same bus and then maybe used some bit of drugs to, I don't know, to make them asleep, unconscious, and whatever. And then the bus owners just got these guys, I think there were 11 or so, put them outside and proceeded. So that is the case the guy was making to the minister to make sure that it is urgently handled, because these guys were hospitalized. And when they were hospitalized, they did not know what they suffered from, but they were hospitalized, they were unconscious at that particular time. So the issue of accountability, if you are the driver, if you are the taxman, if you are the conductor, how do you account for the participants or people with whom you are traveling is a very big issue. Now, the company kept quiet. It did not do anything, neither did it report to police. It just went mute until this consumer came from the hospital. And because he has been empowered, we've been giving him a lot of information on his rights. He was able to write a very interesting letter to the minister to be compensated, but also to investigate the issue in that bus company. So accountability as a business entity, you must be highly accountable to the people who give you the money, who are actually the customers or the consumers. Now, the second issue that I would want us to talk about is the issue of, I just want to handle this one also alongside empathetic communication, but we have something called proactive communication. In proactive communication, it would mean that, for instance, if I come to buy your product and it's not good, it's not meeting the standard I wanted, and I have to share with you that, hey, I am not buying this because the product is not safe, it doesn't look healthy, or something. Now, in that case, you the seller, how do you respond to such a person? How do you respond to such a client is a very big question for now. So you need to ask yourself, how do I dig into presenting this to them? You can apologize and request them to, you just have to look for the language that fits. But what this one means is that we should be proactively engaging with our consumers as fast as we can, so that we don't wait for challenges again to reoccur and you keep saying, you keep lamenting. We want to leave the book of Lamentations and come to the book of Exodus. Now, there's also an issue of problem solving. People have given you their complaints, people have talked with you, customers have given you feedback. How do you solve the problems that they highlighted in their proposal? So, those are some of the aspects that we need to look at in terms of proactiveness when it comes to the issues of customer care. But of course, if you guys who have staff who work at your business, let it be a hospital, let it be a garage, let it be a washing bay, whatever, make sure that your staff who are serving there are extremely knowledgeable or are aware of what is happening. They have knowledge about the subject matter that you do. So it's always good that you give capacity building to your staff, keep giving them awareness, capacity building on these areas. And what are we saying? We are saying that it would be very nice that you keep monitoring businesses for such things. Our knowledge of staff, accountability, and then problem solving. We have problem solving, and then also provisional communication. Once those ones are in place, it would be nice that we can reach far and wide and we can build our businesses. So let us proceed a little bit to the next, appreciating now other aspects uh, uh, around customer care. Now, I want to share with us the impact of poor customer care at our businesses. What happens as the businessmen and women if we do not take any interest in in service delivery or in customer care? One is that actually every single time you have very poor customer care, just to one customer, what happens is that this customer is carrying about 10 people on his back. He's having about 10 people on him that he can influence. So, meaning that every time you show off and you do not give them attention, and so they observe that your service is not having the care, the customer care, they will go back out there and tell their neighbors, they tell their friends, they tell their children, they tell their relatives, they tell their everybody about your product or about your service. And usually it's always a negative telling. They will tell the person that, you know what, you shouldn't ever buy from that place because you'll get frustrated. And indeed, you will not get those 10 who might or who should have come to your shop, but now they cannot come because they know you for uh, poor customer care or poor customer relations. So that is one thing that kills business. So you see, businesses start collapsing, businesses start dying off, businesses start running left, right, center, and they are not performing just because there is a customer care issue that you're not addressing. Let me just give you my simple example. I and my family were on a health insurance. So time comes and I needed health insurance cover for one of my beneficiaries, or one of my dependents. Now, because where I was, we did not have the card of my spouse. I decided that let me go according to the policy. They say, okay, you can go seek service and then bring receipts. So I come back from the hospital with a bill of 1.2 million shillings, if not 1.4. And then I present it to my service provider of insurance. And guess what? The person tells me that, oh no, the person you want to pay for, actually their form was wrongly written, and so we may not be able to support. But I asked them, who entered the data? It is you. Secondly, my data I have been paying for the last 24 months for the same person whose number you're claiming that is not proper. So how do you want me to deal with it? Because You did not alert me while I was paying, but this is 24 months I've been paying, and this is the first episode. The person is getting sick now because of that. Because of that kind of scenario, I have never gone back, and I have demotivated other five, no, not five, other 15 colleagues not to actually go there because they'll be frustrated like me. And they have also withdrawn, even when they were actually beneficiaries. You get it? So quite a lot of mess can happen if the customer care is not well managed. So they lost me, they lost my spouse, they lost my 15 colleagues who also had children that they could actually put on the insurance. Now, who is losing? We can easily get somewhere else, but for them they cannot get us back. So that is how bad it is when you don't deal with issues of customer care. The other time, one of my colleagues that we work with, he insured his vehicle and made sure that he pays for a comprehensive insurance. Now, after paying for 3 years, he had been faithfully paying comprehensive insurance for his car. And now in the third year, which was last year in November, thieves came at his home and banged the glass, the windscreen. So when they banged the windscreen, he said, okay, well, I'll go back to the insurance So he presents his issues to the insurance and they refused to pay him. And now they were busy requesting him to, okay, please, can we renew our contract with you? The man has said no, and he has taken away also a big batch of people from those guys. So that is how insurance lost, you know. So it's a little bit dangerous. So we need to make sure that we do our best, because that takes away our revenue, or the money that we would have received. It goes away because now people cannot bring it back because of your customer relations. But the other issue is about negative publicity. Just imagine those two cases I've given you. I went and I talked with a few members whom I know about the scenario, just to make sure that I heal. But you know what that caused? It caused kind of a public, someone assumes that, oh, this thing, they have been moving up and down here. We thought they have some bit of sense. So somehow people start losing interest, and so you end up having a public reputational issue. So people don't respect your entity, people don't respect your organization, people don't respect your credibility, people don't respect your caliber, and so you end up failing. And that's how businesses collapse, just collapse. So it would be very good that we go back to the drawing board and see our source of money. How do we make it source of money today, tomorrow, and the other day? Of course, every time there's poor customer care, there's usually frustration of consumers. As the consumers actually get frustrated, we get disturbed, we get disrupted, we get disgusted in your services, etc. That is why you will see that if someone, for instance, had a bank account in a particular bank, and that bank one time did not give him the best he wanted, he quickly runs, withdraws all his money, and disappears. So all those are there. So the issue of frustration comes in. The issue of distress comes in. The issue of distrust comes in. Now people fail totally to actually appreciate and actually respect, and they also trust your services. So how are we positioning ourselves to make sure that, one, we have the customer base. Number two, we're keeping that customer base very well. We don't frustrate them. Number three, we make sure that the negative publicity is not existing anywhere. And then number four is an issue of loss of revenue. So of course, I've talked about it, but there is also missed opportunities for growth. That if a company was supposed to be leveraging on another to grow, then you lose opportunities just because of your fraud, just because the consumers are able to report you to wherever they are reporting, and then you lose it. Now, it is also very important to note that this elephant called customer care is not just a minor inconvenience. It has actually significant consequences for both consumers and business. So it's not an issue of just a minor inconvenience. No, it's actually a huge and significant consequence for both us, the consumers, but also the business entities. So there's a lot of stuff that happens, and we take things for granted, but those can actually lead you into a business loss, and so you end up losing a venture that maybe would be giving you more kind of resources. The other opportunity thing that we could look at is when you look at the opportunities that come along with products and service delivery, you realize that, for instance, if there are organizations, they're getting money from donors or whatever. The moment the reputation of an organization is bad, based on the staff, the way the staff do things, and the way people roll out things, it can be very challenging, because at the end of the day, you end up losing donors, you end up losing customers, you start losing loyalty, you start losing everything around you. And when those things happen, you collapse as an entity. Entity dies. Now, one of the scholars also mentioned that it is better. It can be better it's more difficult actually uh, to maintain an organization, or rather a person, a customer, than losing one. So losing one is more expensive than getting one. So you shouldn't allow yourself to actually lose a customer, because getting that one customer can be as costly as, I don't know. So it's very costly to get back a customer than actually losing them. So we in business, we cannot start affording to lose the customers. Let us quickly run at the recommendations. What then are we supposed to do? What can we do to make sure that we improve all these things? One is that we need, as much as possible, to invest. I call it an investment. Let us invest heavily in feedback mechanisms. As a business, as an entity, make sure that you have feedback mechanisms. You should be able to get feedback from your consumers. You should be able to get feedback from your customers. You should also be able to get feedback from your staff. So this feedback you get from these guys, you should be able to consolidate it and be able to use it fruitfully. Make sure you are able to actually use it, because every time you use feedback from people who are buying from you, if someone tells you that your milk had a lot of water and I decided not to buy it, tomorrow you will not put a lot of water so that that customer can actually buy. So the issue of feedback mechanisms have to be in place, whether they are boxes, whether they are QR codes, whether they are anything, but make sure that we have an investment around feedback. The other concern is around training. Our staff who sit in our businesses must be trained on customer care. At least they must have knowledge around that subject. If it's a hospital setting, make sure that the staff are aware and they have the capacity and the skills on customer care. If it is in the business, the same. If it is in the bar or whatever it is, as long as you can do it, it would be good that you train all of your staff who are engaged in the day to day to understand the issue of customers and customer knowledge. Now, in the medical world, it is important that you keep on doing what they call CMEs, continuous medical studies, or something like that. Others call them CPDs, continuous professional development. Then CMEs is continuous medical education, just to make sure that people who are in the field are able to actually gain more capacity and energy and efforts to run the entity with or without you. Okay, and then issues of digitalization. Some of the things you just need to digitalize them. For instance, if you are selling the supermarket, you may need to digitalize the products according to expiry date, and you know which products are actually expiring in Jan, which ones are expiring in December, which ones are expiring. So that can help you to actually know how to package your things and how to put them on the shelves and etc. And then we can also think about, of course, every business is supposed to be motivated by hygiene and sanitation. That's what people first see at hand. So if your sanitation and your hygiene are bad, it means that people may not actually prefer coming to buy from you. So how do you manage your waste at your workplace? Make sure that your waste is well sorted, is managed, so that people can actually have a lot of trust in you. And then also there are other aspects that we may need to do. Look at the security of your project or the security of your company. How is it? Can people actually pick interest in coming there because of your security. I have seen in some of the places where people come up with very good ideas and establish organic markets, agroecological markets, but they put them in places where there are no amenities. There's no parking, there's nothing. So such consumers who wanted to buy there, but they are driving, they cannot stop there because there is no parking. So the security issues, people can come, but they are not trusting that where you have established a business can be safe for their vehicles, and so they are not willing to leave their vehicles right there because they may end up losing it. You know, maybe their phones and whatever. All of those are security matters. And then the welfare of individuals whom we work with has to be clear. Make sure that they have good welfare so that they don't be the victims or they don't be the ones that are actually positioning people to riot or something. So there are quite a number of strategies up there that you can use. You can integrate services, you can support the staff welfare, you can actually enhance security around the area where your business is. And then also you can have issues to do with appraisals. Appraise your business. How are we doing? How are we competing? Are we competing favorably? Check out on your competitors, by the way, and learn from them. See what they're doing well and they're not doing, and adopt it, or even do it even better. So these are some of the aspects that we keep speaking through, and just to help our people to advance, but also to make sure that our people have a wide understanding of the aspects that we are talking about. So basically, those were the insights that we got from the research of 2024 around trade and markets. And then this is how that makes a nexus with the business growth and development. So, bottom the line, we learned that there are lots of issues that are happening. Counterfeit and all these products are fake, others are expired, others. All this can just be addressed if we focus on improving customer care, if we make sure that people are actually understanding why they are doing particular things, and also knowing the reasons behind each and everything that people are actually doing. And once we have all those in place, businesses will boom, businesses will develop, consumers will be sorted, consumers will be able to actually give you the monies, because consumers were the owners of the resources, so they will be able to give you the resources. And by the way, if the market improves, it means that food safety in the markets improves, because you're looking for your customers and your clients, and then you want to certify them, you want to satisfy them, you want to give them the best they can have. And then all of these challenges that we're talking about will actually be history. We cannot even hear about them because people are mindful of where they are getting the resources. Now, for you who is running a business and you're not careful, you're not even bothered about the issue of customer care, you have a problem and you must go and address it, because it is the customer that gives you that money. It is the customer who determines whether they come to yours or they go to the neighbors. It is the customer who understands what they actually want. And so when they tell you they need it, then you must start stocking it. And that's how businesses start growing. That's how businesses start improving. That's how businesses make stock of their things. And that's how businesses actually advance. If we don't go to that level, then we have a problem. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I would really want to appreciate you so much for giving us the attention and for listening to this TV show. But also, we want to appreciate Bongole, who has been making sure that the show is on and running. But also, our colleagues in Mukasa, we thank you for hosting us on this platform. And of course, all our viewers, we want to appreciate you for taking your time, diligently watching and learning with us. But also, we love your comments. Send in your comment or so that we can pick your ideas on how best we can improve the talk show. But also, which other topical issues you would want to listen to, so that we can research on them or we can provide information around them. And then you will be able to receive the best from us. It would also be good that your comments, your likes will make us also energized to give you more series. And yeah, we shall keep on pushing. So next week, we shall be catching up again with another topical issue that we shall be discussing. We shall be presenting it during the course of the week so that you prepare to listen in and follow. And please share widely with other colleagues so that they can be able to receive this important information, and probably it can save their businesses or they can help them to improve here and there. With those so many remarks, I want to thank you and I wish you the best of the weekend, and catch up again next week on Friday, same time. Thank you so much and have a blessed weekend.